Welcome back to Grow with Purpose. This is the podcast that we do at Axiom where we get to talk about business leadership, business growth, but all with the intent to grow with purpose. And today I have a good friend of mine, and this is his world, Doug Pohl. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Grow with purpose. I love it.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know, we covered this on a previous episode, but Doug was kind enough to write the foreword to a book that I wrote it's been about 5 years now. And was involved in that project, and the name of the book was Grow with Purpose. So we rebranded and had the podcast, and it's Grow with Purpose now. And so, Doug, why did I pick you to come back to the podcast now for a third time to specifically talk about growing with purpose? What is it about Doug Pohl that might have something to do with that?
Waiting to hear. So,
well, I want to hear your answer. So why do you think I would have you on the podcast to talk about the topic of growing with purpose?
I think one of the things that comes to my mind is I eat my own dog food.
Yeah.
It comes to mind. It's like, I don't just talk about these things and press in with people and looking at, advice or things that we move in leadership is, if I'm talking to you about it, I've likely experienced it myself, and as we have that opportunity to grow as leaders, I'm going to take it myself first. Yeah. But at the same time, I look at that and say, wow, growing with purpose, what I get to do as a C12 chair is absolutely driven by what God's called me to in my purpose, and helping, leaders engage in their leadership, both in their business and in their life, and help them grow and finding God's purpose in that. So it resonates so deeply with me as a C12 chair and as a business leader that I get to do really what you came out with 5 years ago, that I hand out like candy, by the way, is I have C12 prospects that come to a meeting. One of those deals is you signed off on a whole bunch of these books, and I'm like, if you do nothing else as you come as a C12 prospect and put your toe in the water, please read this.
Well, thank you.
So lot of leaders in our community have that book. So
Doug has been my C12 chair for over 10 years now. And before that, we are actually C12 members together.
Yeah.
We're sat shoulder to shoulder, experience life as leaders in business together. And I will just say to the audience who may not know you personally, Doug is very, very good at what he does.
Thank you.
He sets a high bar. And I pity the people who have to substitute for him, because he does take vacations. He took a sabbatical 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we have great other chairs in this area that do a wonderful job. It's nice, to kind of experience somebody else. But I will say Doug sets a very high bar. And I will say maybe our group is known as the group that doesn't care. And maybe some of our members are not nearly as charitable as I am.
You're right.
Because you've trained them on what to expect. But you're extraordinarily good. And I knew you were good, but I didn't know how good you were until I went to a national C12 conference 2 years ago. And people are always asking, where are you from? Oh, which group are you in? Oh, who's your chair? And when I would tell them Doug Pohl was my chair, they would be like, really? The Doug Pohl? Because you've done training. You've trained a lot of chairs. Yeah. C12 National has used you to train a lot of chairs. And so I wanted to have you on the podcast because C12's tagline, it's similar. It's where I got probably the title with Grow with Purpose. It kind of subconsciously filtered in, but it's what's the tagline? Growing
great business for a greater purpose.
Growing great business for a greater purpose. Mm-hmm. So it's about bringing Christian business owners together and teaching them MBA course level business materials in an environment where they're challenged to bring their faith to bear on the business and use their business as a platform for ministry, right? And it's some of the best relationships I have in the world. My best friends are my C12 friends. Yeah. They challenge you. They get in your face. They point out your blind spots.
Sound like a group you want to join?
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Like, what? Sign me up.
Yeah, I'll go to the dentist afterwards and just make it a full day. So I wanted to bring you on to talk about C12 specifically because we are huge fans. Everybody on my team knows about C12. We've had key players on the team before who've participated in C12. Many of our clients are C12, and some because we have pushed them that direction. Like, you need to sign up for us. Sometimes if you want us to work with you, you need to join C12 because you need, other Christian business owners in your life to challenge you. So I wanted to talk about maybe who is C12 for? Because you might like the overly broad. It's like, well, it's for Christian business owners.
Sure.
But that's too broad a brush. You and I have seen C12 members come and go over the years. And so I would like to hear from you. Who is C12 for?
As I look at C12 and who that's for, one of the pieces I keep honing in on more and more from I'll say strictly a target market. I'll start with that, but then also who's that going to be for from a business owner perspective. Our target market really companies that are at least at $1 million or more in annual revenue. You're not going to come into a C12 meeting if you're a solopreneur. You've got to have at least 5 employees that are full-time with you so you have an opportunity to draw away from the business and do what we call is working on instead of in your business. And you really can't do that if you're not at least those 2 markers.
Sure.
But the other thing is if you want to win more in life, in business, come to C12. That's the best way I can summarize it. And as we get together and I share that time with leaders, where do you need to win more in business? We're having a really difficult time in our culture, in our business. Man, we can't find the right people. Or if we find the right people, they're here, then they're gone. Or we're experiencing some financial crunch. We've had a downturn. And how do we turn that around? And all those business issues that come up as a business owner. But then also, we're holistic in approach. And it makes C12 different than any other roundtable out there today is we have a holistic approach when it comes to you as a leader.
So what does that look like? I mean, holistic, put some meat on that bone for me. What do you mean when you say we have a holistic approach?
Yeah, you're a leader. And when you're a leader, you're not just a leader at home. You're not just a leader in your business. You're not just a leader in your church. You're a leader wherever you go. And how do we approach that in C12? Well, we have the opportunities in C12 to really hone that in with a leader who's in business. And we walk through an annual report that you do bring back to the team and say, here's my core report. Well, how does that begin to look in my business? How are your profit margins? What do those product lines look like? But then also, more importantly, is this whole aspect of your leadership at home. How does that begin to look? And most people who join C12 are married or have influence with a family in that respect. So there are others, of course, that are single and don't have that type of influence, but most of the time as leaders come into C12, they have that influence. And for us, that's where really your leadership begins. And biblically speaking, that's where we would really be pressing in as helping that home leadership be right and that balance that can come over here. Great. Now we can really work on the business. But it doesn't happen overnight, as you know.
Sure.
And you walk through that process to help point those things out, walk with them through those situations. But you're a father, you're a husband, you're a friend. And as those things begin to come out, how does that differ from your business? You can't treat your wife like an employee. Novel idea, right? But oftentimes leaders bring that home and say, I'm a marriage coach in my background. So Kristen and I have walked a number of couples through this marriage process and said, hey, let's take a look at this. Outside of your role as a CEO or business owner, how does this influence your time at home?
Yeah.
How do you treat your children? The devil comes out at home, Joey, and we watch that a lot of times and go like, oh, how do I overcome that? Thanks for joining C12, because we're going to help you not just in your business, but also in your home.
What's interesting, I think I realized this one day, and I don't know if it was because it was happening in my marriage or I saw it's happening in somebody else's marriage, but one of the things that I became aware of is that when you're a business owner, you control your environment. So you can come in and say, I'm not working today, right? I'm going to go fishing. Or you can come in and say, I don't like the way this is being done. I want it changed. I don't like this furniture. I want it changed out. I don't like our office space. I want a different location. I don't like our customer base. We're going to pivot and target a different customer. As the CEO, you get to control your environment at work. And then you come home and you don't get to control like your kids. They don't care. I mean, they do, right? But it's not all about you getting what you want.
Right. I'm just thinking of way too many stories with my 4 young kids, but
Yeah.
Dad said what?
Yeah. When I would come home, Annalise is 10 now.
Yeah.
But when the boys were, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like I come home, I'm in their world. Right. It is not my environment, and I have very little control over it. Dad, you're getting in the pool with me tonight. We're going to go throw the baseball. Like, which things you're happy to do, but you also realize, like, well, I had these plans or I had those plans, and I think we all want to be good husbands. We want to be good fathers. Sometimes we don't know how, but even that desire, it causes you to say, okay, I'm going to live in somebody else's environment. I'm going to live in the environment they prefer.
Mm-hmm.
But we subconsciously take that same mentality, like the place that was most toxic for me was taking it into my marriage.
Sure.
And be like, well, I get to control all the variables at work. And then you realize, like, the maturity is like, well, actually you control far less than you really understand. You're just really good at adapting yourself to a work environment. Because if you're honest with yourself, the clients are always calling the shots.
Mm-hmm.
You think you're working for yourself. You just traded one boss for 20. That's what happens when you go into business for yourself. Yeah. But you have this adaptation skill set that you become very proud of. And then you forget that same adaptation skill set is very helpful at home. Because now you have people who call you boss or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that ability to change environments work against folks. But when you have somebody come into C12 for the first time, how long does it take them to realize that there aren't these artificial barriers between life at home and life at work?
It takes typically a meeting. Honestly, it doesn't take very long for them to understand that. And I refer back to what we call core reports in C12, and that's, again, where you take a look at your life and your business, and you put it all together in 90 minutes, and you get to give this presentation to your board of directors. And having a recent example, just this last month, we had a C12 member who gave his core report, and we had somebody who was testing the waters and had come in and really multi-million-dollar business and very successful from that perspective. And he watched this leader give his core report, and it got to the point where at the very end of it, we talk about, hey, here's what we call the spouse report. And we interview your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And the spouse gets to weigh in on how are things going, not just in business. You might want to give him kudos, or I think he needs to work on, or she needs to work on this. How is he doing? How is she doing at home? And that's a game changer.
I'll tell you, from my seat, it's freaking terrifying.
I'm like, this is awesome. And Joe's like, whoa, it's not. So this particular person who's watching this take place, this was his first meeting, and he's watching a guy who's been in C12 for 5 years. And again, growing his business, and things were going well. And his wife brought up an issue and said, we've got an anger issue that we need to care for. And I'm watching it spill over, and we actually got some feedback from one of his key players who said the same thing. And instead of defending himself in front of the group of 11 other business leaders and a guest, he said, I need some help here, guys. And we began to help and coach and pray for and address, why is that happening at your workplace? What are the things that you're getting upset about? And we're coaching him through this. And the guy at the end of the table, who's the prospect, looking at eyes wide open, like, you guys went deep fast. And that's just how we roll.
Yeah.
But it's caring, it's loving, and if you want to be a better man or a better woman in the sight of God, please join C12.
Yeah. I remember my first C12 meeting. It was at Waterleaf Country Club in Bradenton, Florida. And I'm trying to remember who was giving the core report. I can picture his face. I can picture his industry. I won't say his name. And so he, there's a kind of prepared report you have to fill in. You have to put paragraphs of information and numbers and tables and rate people and break down issues. And it got to one part of the report, and he didn't fill it out. Right? He just kind of skipped over it.
Yeah.
And we we were kind of going around the table, and everybody was very complimentary. Love what you're doing. Love this. Love that. Love that. And I just couldn't. I'd sat there all day with these guys and developed pretty good rapport. They were very welcoming. Some of them are friends to this day. One of them's a client to this day. And you know, I just felt a connection with these guys. And so for whatever reason, like, I had the guts to be like, I think these guys are letting you off the hook. You talk about accountability, you talk about follow through, and you haven't even done the hard work to fill out this report.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And one of the guys next to me looked over and he goes, you belong in C12. I was like, these are my people, right? These are people who, like, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I didn't know what that guy had just been through. And I think part of it was they were going to get there. I was jumping the gun a little bit, but it's because I was naive and I didn't realize the thing that I was pushing on, which was evaluating some of his people. He had just been through the loss of his, like, number one guy who ran all operations.
Okay.
And now it was on him, and he was just still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
They all knew that. I didn't. So it wasn't that they weren't calling him out. It was just that I was naive enough to know that I was, think I was smart enough to hold this guy accountable, who could have schooled me on just about any business or leadership topic you could imagine. I mean, I was young, dumb, and stupid. But what the group appreciated was, hey, here's somebody who's not, they're not here. This guy doesn't want to be here to be told he's doing a good job. He's here because he's looking for the things that nobody else in his world is going to tell him. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people see early on, their first C12 meeting, is they see business owners who have met their match. Yeah. Like, with other business owners, like guys who will tell them they're full of crap, guys who will tell them that the thing they think is the most important thing isn't the most important thing. I agree with you. I in a day, maybe it could be half a day, but there is something that to be said for the transparency. And
that's a great word.
Yeah, and it reminds me of marriage counseling. When Josie and I were going through marriage counseling, you were huge, man. Like, you were by my side that whole time. You and Kristen counseled us. You guys were phenomenal. Don and Angie Powers, right? And then we got involved at MarriageWorks. And we got asked to be on, I was asked to be on the board for MarriageWorks. And so Don takes his board. Don and Angie Powers run a nonprofit here called MarriageWorks in Bradenton that helps couples in crisis. Mm-hmm. They had helped us, so we became big fans. And so Don was like, why don't you join the board? So they take us down to Palm Island for a board retreat. And so we're talking to some of these other coaches, and we're like, and these are people who have helped us through crisis. Like, these are the people who spent a day with us, like, getting our marriage back on track. Yeah. For Josie and I, it's like we're walking among the Hall of Fame, of marriages, just like, man, this is where we want to be. And something was said about, when we used to fight, like, it was like till 3 or 4 in the morning. And one of the coaches is like, 3 or 4 in the morning? We had one last week that went until sunrise. And I was like, what? And they saw the shock on my face, and they're like, understand, like, you're going to fight. Like, we all do. Mm-hmm. Like, if things are important to you, like, you're not going to have a good day, and your spouse is going to be irrational, or you're going to be irrational, or you're both going to be irrational at the same time. And C12 is kind of like that, because when I heard that, I was like, it's not the end of the world. Mm-hmm. Like, we're kind of normal. That doesn't mean that we accept it and just want to, are okay going at each other, but at least we don't have the angst of thinking, wow, our marriage is never going to work because nobody fights like this and has a successful marriage.
Right.
And C12 is the same thing. It's like, man, I've got a future as a business owner who can make a difference because I'm as screwed up as that guy. And look at what he's able to do.
Right on.
And it's just that guy's will or lady's willingness to be like, hey, I'm struggling. Whether it could be a kid, it could be a business, it could be an employee, it could be whatever. And I don't have it together. And it just creates this safe place where, it's kind of hard. If I'm describing C12 to you and you've never experienced it, find a chair, go sit and do a meeting, go visit for a meeting, because it really is something that almost has to be experienced.
It really is. That's, as I get back to that, when others ask about, well, tell me about a C12 meeting. I said, you need to come and experience C12. I can give you a couple things that'll happen, but I need you to come and just experience a day, because it just goes like that. That's a great word that you used earlier, is transparency. And there's a transparency that takes place because there's a trust between members around that table that they have each other's back. We've been there for each other in the valley. We're that proverbial 2 a.m. Friend that comes alongside and says, I'm having a really difficult time with my son, and I just need to bounce some ideas off of. And you've got not just one, but 2, 3, 4 people who go, absolutely, what can I do? Can I step in? Can I help with your son? Can I pray for you? And that's just normal, let's say, quote unquote, normal for a C12 group. Most people, most leaders don't experience that.
Yeah.
Right? Most leaders, it's lonely at the top, as you've heard over and over again. And as a leader, you might be watching or listening today. It's lonely. Can you talk to your VP about a situation that involves them that's going to have a downline effect with, a lot of the time that's a really tough conversation to have.
Yeah.
Where can I do that they don't have skin in the game, that they care about me, and that they want the best for me? That's what you experience around a C12 table.
And they know what it's like to be in your shoes.
Yes.
Like that was the biggest thing for me when I decided to start my own business in 2005. I went from working for other people, and I was a CPA, and I was working in accounting firms and tax firms and international tax, and doing business consulting and stuff like that. But when I went out on my own, I became a business owner, and I have these 2 friends to this day. They are great friends. They're some of my closest friends in the world, and our kids grew up together, and they're still the guys that I want to hang out with. But they weren't business owners. And they both had the same profession. And so they would talk to each other about their field, and they could relate to one another, and they would help each other, and their kind of careers took similar trajectories. And so they were kind of there for each other, even like razzing each other about the stuff. And I was like, I didn't have anybody. Nobody knew what it was like to be a business owner. Nobody knew what it was like to try to make payroll when you had waited too long to fire somebody or several people, and the business was really struggling. Nobody knew the euphoria of getting the biggest account that you've ever gotten before, right? And C12 is where I found those people. And it was like, man, part of it is it just feels good to walk into a space where people are going through all the same stuff you're going through. Because as a business owner, it's lonely at the top, but it's also lonely everywhere else. It's lonely at home, because, your family gives enough for, sacrifice, right? It's not like they're your therapy group or your free business advisor or your additional admin labor when you come home. It's like your family needs to be insulated from that, right? Maybe your spouse is very interested in your business. That's great, right? But I would say she probably wants to talk less about it, right? Or he. Your friends, they've got their own careers, but with C12, like they were called to be business owners. These are your people. These are my people, right? So it feels awesome to know that. But when we talked earlier about who is C12 for, let's say who thrives in a C12 environment and who struggles. And I'll tell you why I'm asking. Because I think thriving, obviously, that makes your job easier. It's great to sit next to somebody in C12 who's thriving. But it's the people who struggle that I really want to experience life with. Like I feel like those are the people that I might be able to be of most use to.
Right.
If somebody's thriving, like how much more can I add to their experience? But if somebody comes in that room and they're struggling, but maybe there's 2 kinds of struggle. Maybe they're struggling for the wrong reasons, and C12 just isn't in the right place, the right time for them. But they're struggling, and they're struggling for all the right reasons, and C12 is the absolute perfect time and place for them. Does that make any sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And who are those that do well with a C12 mindset that coming in as a testing the waters, growth focused, humble in their approach. I call it coachable, but are they able to receive advice and take that advice, and you come back that next month and go, how'd you do on that? Excited to, man, I tried that and I did this and it's actually working. Who doesn't it work for? I come into C12 and I already know the answers to my questions. Okay, well, we're going to, as a C12 group, just so you know, we're going to question your answers. And if you're not okay with that, then you're probably not going to be a great fit, because that piece of it that you and I have both seen from $1 million to $1 billion companies that come in and they're not coachable, they have all the answers, they jump in quickly and they're quick to give advice, but yet on the receiving end, there's a defensiveness, or there's a reason why, or there's a, kind of, I'd say this, it's pointing the finger in another direction. That doesn't work with me very long coaching, and I will call you out on that, and we'll do that, through that one-to-one piece, but also if the group doesn't get to you first. I picture it like this when you're out fishing, right? And there's probably a lot of fishermen, and you've got that piece of tuna that you've chopped in half, and you're looking to throw it out in the water and do some fishing. And we call it in C12 the sharks are circling, because once they sense blood in the water, and again, I say this in a good way, but they will come around that quickly and discover that issue and that problem and start to.
I can't tell you how many times that has happened. And like you said, sharks, blood in the water, probably not the best analogy.
Not the best way,
but like the issue is not the issue.
Yes.
Right. So we have in C12, there's a time of the day where you get to put an issue on the table, right? And there's a big part of your core report is like, what are the major issues you're dealing with that, you would like the group's counsel on? And, it's like core reports where somebody's like, actually, everything's going well, right? And then, man, you say that to a C12 group, but you might as well say, sick them to a dog, because they're like, well, tell me about this and tell me about this. It's like they can already smell, that blood in the water, so to speak, through elements of the presentation you've done so far, because they know you so well. They spend 8 hours every month with you. I mean, think about that. 12 times a year. That's 96 hours over the course of a year. And it's not just hanging out and chit-chatting and small talk. It's like, how is your life going right now? How's the 10-point alignment matrix, which is like all the areas of your life. How are you doing? Like, rate yourself. That's how you start the day. It's like, where are you struggling the most? I mean, you talk about getting down to brass tacks of what's going on in your world. And then you had devotion, scripture. It's like it cuts to the bone. Like if there's so many times I've sat in the room and the devotion is the thing that just brings me to my knees metaphorically. Like I needed to be humbled, and this was it. And then you get into business topics about which you don't know as much as you thought you did. You get into ministry, which is like, am I really using this business the way? And then you get to the core report, and you see a guy who is laying his life open. He's bare on the operating table, giving everybody else a machete, to do the surgery on him. Yeah. And you're just like, I'm doing this 12 times a year, right? It's transformational. These become more than friends. These become the people my C12 board. There's 4 guys in my C12 group, of which you are one, that if something were to happen to me, you guys have already been talked to ahead of time. You will come alongside my wife and help her with the disposal of my business to key employees. That's, I don't know how many people have that.
Right.
And I guess that's my point, is like, we hear a lot about men and the lack of meaningful relationships they have, the lack of meaningful friendships that they have. And that element of C12 is off the charts. But there's also this thing that I've seen happen with the guys who come in the room who do think they know it all. They think that they've got great advice to give, but there's really not anything that they're going to get. They're almost like humoring us, like, I will bless you with my presence, right? I think what happens is that very early on, probably the first day, certainly for the first day, they're like, holy cow, this group is way more transparent than I was ready for. Second meeting, they're like, wow, this group challenges each other way more than I expected. And then maybe it's like 3 meetings. It's like, I got to get the heck out of here because this is a group that's going to call me out on all my crap. Right? There's almost an element of like, they kind of know they're pretending. And what's frustrating is the group desperately wants them to just stop it.
Yeah.
Like, just get real. And I've seen that happen too. And that's game changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the guys that'll be there for life.
Transformational.
Yeah, because they get, the group has been kind of signaling, like, just be honest with this dude. Don't make us call this out.
Yeah.
But we will, because we care about you that much.
Yeah.
And it's usually something in their marriage or their kids. It's one of those 2 areas. It has nothing to do with the business, because we don't know enough about the business. Businesses are complicated, right? But we've all seen in our own marriages where they go south. We've all seen in our own relationships with kids when things have gotten off track. We've certainly seen it amongst our friends, many of them in C12 together, or our family members, and we can see it. And we're like, please, man, just stop it for a second.
Yeah.
And, those guys who, or ladies who are like, no, I'm not going to face this now. C12's not for me. The businesses weren't as big as mine. The people didn't have as much experience. Material was kind of amateur, kind of bush league material. I went to Harvard Executive MBA school one summer and graduated from there. I think that's probably where I'm going to spend my time, right? And you're just like, man, just stop it. I'm sorry, I'm going on and on because I see this, and it's kind of like, this is what you need.
Exactly.
And if you stick around, it's life changing.
I had you bring to mind a recent example of a leader, respected leader, multi-million-dollar company, had been in business for 15 years, and sat down for lunch, and basically was like, well, what can C12 offer me from a value perspective? And I'm going through the things that I think are important and walking through that process. And he's considering it, and he gets to the end of our conversation. He says, what's my minimum stay in C12? Like, is there a minimum time for me to be in C12?
What's my sentence going to look like?
Right. And I said, well, we evaluate at a year period of time. He goes, okay, just so you know, I'll probably be one of those guys. I'm just going to do this for a year. One of his executives had referred him and said, man, you really need to get in C12. And he's like, well, I'll consider it. I'll go out for lunch with the chair. And he's obviously now he's been in C12 longer than a year, and he's referring other leaders now because of what he's experienced in that first time of him going around the block and listening into the leaders around the table and going, whoa, actually, this has been much more holistic and beneficial for me as a person and as a leader and in my business, multiplicity effect that he is experiencing. And I'm getting referrals now. What happened to I'm going to be in C12 for a year?
Yeah.
So that tune changed, but it's an example that I hear. And you're one of those, Joey, who says C12 is my best day of the month.
It's this Thursday.
It's
and
this,
I'm sitting on
Thursday.
pins and needles. I can't wait.
Right.
And I will say, like, the biggest objection I hear, and I think you've shared this with me before as we've talked, is like one of the biggest objections, the amount of time. Like, I got to be out of the business for a day, a month, every month. Like, I hardly get to take as much vacation as I want. And you want me to maybe cut my vacation days back so I can use some of that time. Now, they get all the PTO they want. That's my point. My point is they feel like they're so busy that they can't step away from the business. And that I would just be like, you got a lot of things to work on, right? And the only way you're going to work on them is by getting out of the business.
Right.
Like, you're not going to work yourself out of that problem. That's a choice that you've made. You've chosen for the business to be that dependent on you. If you hit those revenue qualifiers and those team qualifiers and you can't step away from the business you're just making excuses, man. I don't care. Like, and trust me, C12 was very gracious to me. I don't know whether they were desperate for members when I started, but I didn't meet those criteria.
Yeah.
Right. And I was I was almost a startup, right?
Yeah.
A couple $100,000, $300,000, $400,000 in revenue and maybe 2 or 3 team members. And they took me, and I was leaving my business for, 5% of the work month, one day out of 20 to go spend time where I was making no money, no billable hours, no new clients, no projects out the door, no supervision of. I probably was paying people who weren't getting anything done all day, right? So it was even worse. But I could see that C12 was that valuable. It was like kind of like, so you're not going to do it here. Where are you going to do it? Like, you need to do it. So where? So it's kind of like but I want to speak to another, maybe a quote unquote objection.
Sure.
I've joked with you, but it is not a joke. I assure you that you could charge me whatever you wanted to charge me, because my wife will never let me leave C12. Right. So Josie's like, she's all in, just take his credit card, ring it up. He will be there every month. And if he's not, you call me and I'll make sure he's there.
Yeah.
So what is it? I've heard you talk about this before, but it's we may have mentioned it several times, different conversations, but what is it like for the spouse, husband or wife, of a prospective C12 member? What is their take on it? Because I think Josie is probably like, it's almost like, now it very much is me time, right? This is my refuge.
Yeah.
This is my sanctuary.
Yeah.
But she just sees the benefits that she's like, well, he needs that because I need that. I need him to have that because he's a better husband, better father. But early on, I think this is with a lot of C12 members. It's kind of like their wife is like, "Oh, you're taking another day off again," or their husband's like, "Seriously? Like, I thought you were so busy, and you're taking a full day out to go sit in a room with these other business owners." And there's some skepticism. Is that just me reading into that? Is that actually happening? What is the perspective, and how do people, get to the point? How many Josies are there out there, and what does that transition look like of like flipping the switch where she stopped looking at it as a day off where she didn't know what I was doing, to a day that was critical to everything.
Right on. That switch happens when that relational piece begins to take place between the spouse and a C12 group, whether that be double date, whether that be me and Kristen, hey, we're going to spend some time with, whether that be me reaching out to the spouse and a spouse interview, because in the first year, C12 member, you're going to be doing a core report, and in your core report, you'll have a spouse interview. Well, I get insights into that. I get to talk with spouses. So in those respects, you begin to see some of that groundwork being laid, and as well as hanging around other C12 spouses that go, this has been the best thing for our family. Yeah. The business has been his or her mistress for years, and until C12 came around to go, that's not your mistress. This is your family. This is where you need to be focused, and others coming alongside of you to help you understand what that looks like and what that means. Yeah. So it's different for each one. I can think of specific examples of spouses who didn't understand it until they came to visit. Yeah. And they were part of that core report, and we invite the spouse to come and be a part of that and go, this is your team. This is who your husband or your wife hangs around, and you get a chance to get the pulse of what that looks like.
I will never let that mention of spouses coming to core reports, I'll never let that go by without giving a shout out to our great friend and C12 brother, Mike Forbes.
Yes.
Who had the guts one year. He was doing his core report, and he asked if he could invite Cinzia to come. And somebody asked him why, because this had never been done before, at least not in a group I've been part of. And he said, because I know you guys are probably going to tell me to do some things I don't want to do. But if Cinzia's here, then I will have to do them. And I think we were all like, holy, look at the cojones on this guy. Right. I don't have the courage to do that. Yeah. Like, the last thing I want is my wife in this room hearing these guys tell me I'm wrong, and I've always been wrong, and I'm always going to be wrong until I change my mind because I'm just not seeing the blind spot. Yeah. I don't want her to hold that over my head. And I have watched over, that was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It was a long 15. Time ago.
I was a member at the time with you.
Yeah, so it was at least 10 years ago, if not more. And he started a movement, at least in our group, where that has become, I'd say it's maybe 50-50. We often get to sit with, and I'll tell you Josie's experience. The first core report she sat in on, I think it was the I want to punch you in the nose core report. I think that was the first one. But she said, what was crazy is they're all talking about your business, and they were asking you questions, and they were challenging you. And I don't even remember what the issue was, but they were pushing me hard on something. And one of the C12 members, I think it was Dean Burnside, said, Josie, what do you think you should do? And she had never been given, I might have said, like, what do you think? Kind of like I should ask for her opinion, right?
Yeah.
But she had never been acknowledged and taken that seriously. And she kind of demurred, like, well, I think what you guys, no. We need to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah.
And C12 is what taught Josie the importance of her role. And everything to have to do with Joey, and everything to have to do with Axiom. And from that point forward, like, she asked me about it 4 months ago.
Yeah.
When's your C12 core report? And it gets circled. It's the second Thursday in July. Yeah. It's been circled on the calendar for 6 months. She will move heaven and earth. She may drop the kid off on the street corner, right? But she will be there, right? She's not going to miss it.
Yeah.
And I think that seeing people challenge your spouse, the person that you love, and seeing them say hard things that nobody else in their life is challenging them that way. And then seeing their spouse's response to that. I think Josie was surprised that I didn't challenge any of these guys. Right? I was like, I'm not going to challenge these guys. I'm not going to tell Billy Swanson he's wrong. Are you crazy? Right? I mean, because I knew better. But she was like, well, obviously these guys have some kind of influence over my husband, unlike any person I've ever seen him around. And now she knows, like, she'll put stuff on my issues list.
Oh, no.
For our one-to-one, which I want to talk about quickly before we wrap up. But also for C12 Day, she'll be like, "Hey, can you put this on?" Right? And
love that.
And so, because she knows, I'm going to go there. I'm going to get godly counsel. And if there's something that needs to be done, these are guys who are going to tell me they want to punch me in the nose if I don't do it.
And we better put in there too, along with that piece of it, there is a great encouragement that comes through other leaders speaking into you and lifting you up. There's a lot of the shark and blood in the water, and having that perspective, yes, that's what we get to do. But let me tell you, the other side of that as well is I've watched leaders in tears as their team around the table speaks life into their husbandry, into their role as a wife, into their role as a CEO or business owner, and no one speaks to them like a fellow leader can speak into them. Yeah. So there's a lot of that that happens as well.
I watched our brother, Mike Kokoza, do this last month. He literally went around the table. There's a portion of the segment where we're talking about recognizing the gifts other people have. He went around the table and he spoke to each person around the table with very insightful comments about what their giftings were. And you can tell, like, we don't hear these kinds of things often by people who know us well. And then you get to do your core report, and that just is on steroids. To have a group of people listen to you lay out your life for 2 hours and talk about the challenges in your business, talk about the challenges at home, challenges in your marriage, the victories that you've experienced, the things that are coming up that you're anxious about and need counsel on. And at the end of that time, 10, 11 people go around the table and tell you that you're an encouragement. And why you're an encouragement. Not hollow words, like at length. What you're doing here is something that I needed to hear today. You can't get that in a lot of places. And yeah, and for Josie to be there during that time, if that's happening once a year and she gets to see that, like, we're bulletproof.
Right.
She knows that we've got a whole bunch of people. We're not bulletproof, but there's a bunch of people who take a bullet for us.
Exactly.
And we got, she knows she has you. She knows she has David. She knows she has Skip. There's guys in that room that are going to take her call 24/7 because something's either happened to me or and they need to come give me a swift kick. I'm misbehaving. Maybe we'll wrap up. We've talked a lot about the C12 group experience, like where you go for your meeting. That's once a month. It's all day. Really, it kind of is my day. I try not to do anything work related on that day. I mean, I'm working on the business, but no appointments before, no appointments after. Just let that be a day where I can just prepare for and then process everything that's happened. Because I come out with just a million great ideas, right? But let's talk about the one-to-ones, because when you're in a CEO group, one of the things that I have benefited from tremendously, and a lot of the time that you and I have spent together that's allowed our relationship to go deep over the last 10 years, is the one-to-ones, where you and I get to spend time every month, and you are a phenomenal listener, phenomenal coach in your own right. Like that's a whole different professional journey that you developed and excelled at before you became a C12 chair, and you just brought that skill set into C12. But talk about the one-to-ones, their importance in the C12 experience. Is this something some CEOs may have hired a business coach. And how is the relationship at a C12 chair one-to-one different or the same? Are they the same? Like, give me some insight into that, because all I see is my experience with you.
Yeah, I think what's helped me a lot is I was a member before I became a C12 chair. And I became a member about the time you started Axiom in 2005. So I had the opportunity to grow up through the membership piece of it and begin to experience, well, what's it like to be coached? And then having the opportunity to step in as a chair and turn the tables in a way from being coachee to coach and C12 member. I think the best way to explain it, Joey, is for me, there's 4 different roles that come with being a C12 chair. And this is probably the best way I can describe it to you. Is the 4 different hats that I get to wear as a C12 chair. Is I get to be a coach, and in that process, asking questions, deep listening, reflecting back what I'm hearing, connected questions, all those things that come along with coaching. Then there's the consultant piece, and what do I bring to the table as an expert? I'm a people person. I'm a psychometrics guy. I can help you work on your leaders and develop your leaders, move them to the next level. Then I'm a minister. And there's oftentimes when that ministry or that care piece comes into play, or I've got to step into a child passed away in your family, or a divorce has happened, or whatever that may. And God has called me to that, and it's one of the most difficult areas to be is in that minister role. But I embrace it because of who God made me to be, and I've got Him with me in that. The last piece is friend, and I love the friend piece. And I think that's unique. I don't have a lot of other chairs that I'm look at that and I go, I'm so grateful for the Joeys in my life because my C12 groups are full of, I have dozens of leaders that I call friend. And having that friend piece to me is part of that coaching process. That doesn't happen overnight, but it happens through that developing of, hey, Joey, let's go to a high-level executive meeting. It just happens to be at Ed Smith Stadium, or LECOM, or what used to be the Trop. I mean, those high-level executive meetings, we develop friendships. Hey, let's go out shooting together. Hey, let's go on a walk together and we're spending time. We're going to do a double date together. That's all building into that coaching piece. For me, again, it's a very holistic approach. So I hope that answers the question, but it's really those 4 hats that I get to wear.
I think it's a good example of what we were saying before. It's a good illustration of, like you said, you started the podcast by saying, I eat my own dog food, right? But I think you're also, in this respect, illustrating that there shouldn't be any silos. It's all, they're relationships. There's a business component to it. There's a friendship component to it. And I can tell you from sitting in an all-day C12 meeting, it's impossible to draw a line between the two, right? You're laughing, you're having it's the funnest day I have. I laugh more on C12 days than almost any other day of the month. But it's also like when you're being confronted on a business issue, there's friendship in that.
Right.
There's care, there's concern. When you've got something going on in your life, there's a ministerial component, there's a pastoral component that group is playing in your life. And it's I like what you said, it's a very holistic way. It's who God made us to be. We shouldn't try to divide what He's created as one whole. And I think C12 does that very, very well.
Thank you.
So, well, I will say if you're in Southwest Florida, I don't know, maybe your groups are full. Maybe you've got some openings. But if you're in Southwest Florida and you're not in C12, I would say hunt Doug down, get on his list. And if he's full, he's got some colleagues. They're very good too. They're really good.
Right,
they're awesome human beings. And there's space for you in C12. And C12 is international. Right? So it doesn't matter where you're at. If you're listening to this podcast and you're like, that sounds good, is it c12group.com? Is that the...
So we've got a Southwest Florida page.
Okay.
Yeah, c12swfl.com.
And if they're not in this area, is it...
joinc12.com.
joinc12.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can find a group in your area, one close to you. And I know I've gotten to know lots of C12 chairs. Chuck Frary, who's the guy who sat across a breakfast table and invited me into C12.
Mm-hmm.
I got to see him last month, 2 months ago at the C12 conference. He's still a C12 chair, and we picked up right where we left off more than 15 years ago. So they're all amazing individuals. They've been called. They go through a lot of training. We didn't even touch on this, but everybody who is a C12 chair, they have to be vetted as a C12 chair. So like you don't just decide you want to do this.
Right.
You kind of have to go through a confirmation of your calling by people who've been doing it a long time and know what a genuine C12
hardest
chair
interviews I've ever been through,
Yeah.
honestly. And the vetting process, I had to walk through 6 different interviews with business leaders, boards of directors, Tampa Bay Steel CEO. I mean, I remember all these guys. I'm like, oh my goodness, what do I even bring to the table? I'm totally intimidated.
Yeah.
And they're all like, are you sure you're called? Are you sure you're called? Are you sure you're called? Tell me how you're called. And for the love of God, I'm called. Trust me. but it was, very, very.
That's comforting from
level.
A business owner's perspective that's looking to get involved.
Yeah.
And it's like, is this person really going to add value? Well, the C12's done a good job to make sure that if there's value to be had, you're going to get it, or you're not trying very hard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll leave it at that. So thanks for being here, Doug. Big fan of C12. Josie's even bigger fan of C12. And I really appreciate you.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.